Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. Thanks for joining us this morning. We invite you to join in our conversation over on Getter and Rumble. And don't forget YouTube. We're in there like crazy today. It is now time to take the political pulse of America. The Beat today, a new poll from John Zogby Strategy shows Donald Trump's approval rating at 46%. That's a sharp bounce back, coinciding with an August drop in media hysteria, including coverage linking him to Epstein. Voters have moved on, if you will, and so have Democrats. They've quietly shelved talk of impeachment. Zogby says at 46%, that is not an impeachable president. Well, meanwhile, Democrats trail badly on key issues. Their momentum has totally shifted. And I want to bring in David and Terrence to discuss. I think this was rather predictable. Look, he's doing the work. He's doing the work. It's so interesting. I spent the last week out in, I like to call it California, but I shouldn't because my friends there get very offended because there are a lot of people there who are great patriots. I was one of them for a long time. But yeah, went back there to see friends, and amazing just sitting around in cafes and things, listening to people talk about President Trump. It's Trump derangement syndrome is so contagious there. I heard this group of three men who looked like conservatives, like three fishermen on a dock the morning before I left, and one of them said, Gavin Newsom, he hasn't really done anything. I mean, can you name one thing he's really done for California? And the other guy goes, he trolls Trump. I'm like, wow. So that's why you elect a governor to troll the president. But this is the mentality of a lot of people still in California. And in our coasts, this greatly is the prevailing thought. But it's the real people of the world, the people in the center, in the heartland of the country, and whose hearts are with the heartland of the country, I think, that get it. Don't you, David?
Yeah, and Trump channels that, and that's something the media just will never get, and they purposely don't want to get it because, supposedly they're intellectually curious, except when it comes to Trump and some of the reasons he's connecting with folks. I don't put much in these polls. I never have. Trump is a divisive figure, obviously, in America. That goes without saying. So this idea that he's at 46%, 48%, he's never going to be a 52%, 55% president. It's just not going to happen. So I don't really care about those polls whatsoever. But Democrats have to be careful, T. Bates, with these polls, because when you are pro-illegal immigration and pro-crime, hey, listen, I'm not a political expert or any sort of PR expert, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out those are not tenable positions to win elections.
And David, I would argue that whatever President Trump's approval rating is, it's not necessarily even an approval of him specifically. It's an approval of the job he's doing. And Americans see that he is busy every single day. There's always news coming out of the White House. And they also see the transparency. It's just a new day in the White House, period. We're experiencing things in terms of openness of government, in terms of transparency, in terms of people being able to be part of the process and see the process that we've never seen before. And I think people just appreciate that. Again, whether they agree or disagree with his policies, I think it's hard to disagree with the fact that at least you see what's happening behind the scenes.
No doubt about it. All right, guys, well, let's turn now to the war in Israel. Specifically, the upcoming new film, The Dragon's Prophecy, is sparking conversation. It's being called one of the most provocative films of the year, connecting the October 7th attacks on Israel to ancient scripture, biblical warfare, and modern terror. It's directed by best-selling author, podcast host, and former Reagan policy advisor Dinesh D'Souza. We love Dinesh. The film features exclusive interviews with world leaders, faith voices from Prime Minister Netanyahu, Mike Huckabee, Eric Metaxas is in it, so many more. Let's take a look at the trailer real quick.
Is that Israel is a colonial project. The problem with that is the city of David. We are an inconvenient truth.
Are you aware of any significant archaeological finding that contradicts the Bible?
No.
God's word stands firm. The dragon will not prevail.
Your message here is become a dragon slayer.
Based on Jonathan Cahn's #1 international bestseller, The Dragon's Prophecy.
Joining us now is the man behind The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, Terrence Bates here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So let's just start here. This is a bit of a departure from what we're used to seeing from you.
Yeah, most of my films have focused on America and the meaning of America. So here I go into a war zone. We're in Gaza, where we have a lot of somewhat raw footage of October 7th, because I think it's important to put people on the scene because nothing is understandable outside of that context. And then we explore the deeper meanings of October 7th. And specifically the question of whether or not the war between Israel and the Palestinians is a kind of echo or resurrection of some of the earlier conflicts between Israel and the ancient enemies of Israel, specifically the Philistines, recorded in the Bible.
Yeah.
Dinesh, if I can just follow up, Dr. Gina, I'm sorry, just very quickly, because I'm very curious what motivated this. Was it a spiritual calling? It almost sounds like there was a spiritual touch here that motivated this, but I'm curious to hear from you what motivated it.
My wife and I went to Israel for the first time in December of 2022, and we became familiar with biblical archaeology, which is, stuff coming out of the ground that confirms the Bible in stunning ways. You take a guy like Pontius Pilate, for example, who's in the New Testament, but prior to a few years ago, there was no non-biblical validation of Pontius Pilate, no inscription, no record that there was such a man. And a lot of skeptics thought, well, a lot of this stuff is just made up, Jeremiah, King David, this stuff is like fiction, like Greek mythology. This is the power of biblical archaeology. So interestingly, after October 7th, I started out to make a film about October 7th, and then I realized that the underlying question here is whose land is it? And in that question, the issue of biblical archaeology is relevant, it's significant. So part of this film is a bringing together of ideas and experiences that a kind of convergence between politics and history, and yes, you guessed it, sort of spirituality.
I have so many questions for you, Dinesh. First of all, can you start off with just explaining the basis? What is the dragon's prophecy?
So in the book of Revelation, there is a description of a dragon, the dragon symbolizing here the devil. And the dragon sets his sights and declares war on a woman who is pregnant. Now, classically, for the Jews, the woman is Israel, and the pregnancy is the sort of the state of Israel or the nation of Israel. Christians tend to see the woman as Israel and the child as the Messiah. But either way, however you look at it, you essentially have a kind of primordial conflict between good and evil represented here. And in a sense, we are viewing October 7th, we're viewing the war through the lens of that prism. Of course, the big question here is, yes, it's good and evil, but who is good? Who is evil? How can the people who are good fight a war without adopting the tactics of the people who are evil? All of this is explored, I think, in a quite profound way in this film.
Dinesh, the return of the sea people, right? I mean, this is just fascinating. Goliath and all of that kind of plays into this. I'm curious to kind of get your take on that. And Jonathan Cahn specifically, who's wrote a book, obviously, about this. So I'm curious to get your take on some of that input, because I must tell you, I know Jonathan. He wrote The Harbinger about 9/11 and some of the biblical prophecy behind that. So it's just so much interesting stuff here.
Yeah, what Khan does is he masterfully ties the past, the present, and the future together. So there's even a hint of biblical prophecy in this film. But let me point out a very interesting connection between the Philistines and the Palestinians. First of all, it is the same name. It is the same word. Now, how did that word come down to us through history? The Philistines, of course, disappeared from the map. But here's what happened. The Romans, when they conquered Israel, they wanted to punish the Jews for organizing some revolts against the Roman Empire. And so they did it by saying, all right, we're going to actually take the name of your ancient enemies, the Philistines, and we're going to rename Israel or Judea Palestine. So the Romans are the ones who came up with that. And very interestingly, it is that name Palestine that is now adopted by the Muslims in the region and by the radical Muslims who back them to wage war against Israel. So this is the very peculiar connection. The name Palestine was inflicted on Israel by the Romans as a kind of insult.
Fascinating. So what is the real question that you feel was answered in your deep dive into this story?
The real question, I think, is number one, whose land is it? Because without trying to answer that question, you really can't make progress here. Now, by and large, countries are, if I look around the world, how do you get a country? How do you get a border? Well, the answer is there are three ways to do it. One way is you were there first, and the Jews were there first. Number two is by negotiation, and the UN, right after World War II, basically handed over this land to the Jews. Number three is by conquest, and Israel succeeds on that front too, because they've had wars in 1948, 1967, 1973, and each time Israel has prevailed. So whichever basis of legitimacy you look for a country, Israel scores a check mark. If you look at America, for example, the Native Americans were here first. But, you can say the white man won the war. So you can say, well, all right, well, one for the Native Americans and one for the white man. Whose land is it? You can debate it. With Israel, I guess what I'm saying is whichever measure you use, that land, including, by the way, the West Bank, which was historic Judea and Samaria. Gaza used to be the land that the Philistines used to control, but of course the Philistines are gone. So the fundamental questions in this debate are all confronted, including the issue of civilian casualties, by the way, confronted head on in the film.
Thank you so much, Dinesh, for speaking truth. And a younger generation needs to hear exactly what you're talking about. We have to run, but tell us where people can go see the film and all of that.
It's going to be in theaters October 6th and October 8th, so right around October 7th, streaming the day after, and DVDs, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. That's the website, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. You can watch the trailer, get information, sign up for updates. Movie tickets will go up for sale the middle of the month.
Dinesh, great to have you with us. Thank you so much, and thanks for everything you're doing.
Good luck with the film. And I would just want to add, everyone should go see it in the theaters on the day. It helps the film dramatically with their success if you actually go to the theater on the days where it's in the theater. And those days, again, are October
6th and October 8th.
All right. Thanks, Dinesh.
Yeah, and take the younger generation, the Gen X folks with you. Thanks again.
Gen X, that's us, David. You meant Gen Z.
I'm sorry, Gen Z. I'm sorry. What am I talking about? Z, X, Y, PDQ. All right. Thank you, Gina. I appreciate. You're absolutely right. See, I'm old. I'm Gen X. I've turned into a boomer. All right. So if you're stressed about back taxes, maybe you missed the April deadline, or your books are a mess. Well, don't wait. The IRS is cracking down. Penalties add up fast. 5%. Per month, up to 25% just for not filing. But there's help. Don't worry. Tax Network USA can take the burden off your shoulders and stop the spiral before it gets worse. They've helped thousands of Americans, whether you're an employee, a small business owner, or haven't filed in years. Messy books? No problem. They've seen it all. They know exactly how to clean it up. With direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side, Tax Network USA knows how to win. And Trump likes that. He likes winning. You'll get a free consultation. And if you qualify, they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. More importantly, they'll help protect you from wage garnishments or bank levies. So don't wait for the next IRS letter. Call 800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV to talk to a real expert at Tax Network USA. Take the pressure off. Let Tax Network USA handle your tax issues. We've got more American Sunrise after the break.